My name is Alan Zimkus. My rank was ETN2. And then I qualified to go to electronics technician school, also at Great Lakes, and went through electronics school there. I don't remember how long it was, probably 3 months, 4 months, and became an ET based for communications. And after that, my first place of duty was directly on the USS Purvis DD-709 out of Newport Island, which was only an hour and a half from my house in Connecticut. So it was not too bad. Um, and I came on board, and it was different than being in your barracks when you're up there and basic training and in A school. Um, we all basically slept in very small compartments, and I learned very quickly I wanted to be in the top rack, not the bottom rack, because some of the guys, as you know, in the Navy and other services, they have a tendency to maybe overindulge sometimes on liberty. And so it's always better to be on top than be on the bottom. So I learned that very quickly in the first few weeks. So I got the top rack when it first came available, and that's where I stayed for the next until I was on that particular ship the whole time. From the time from the day I boarded to the day I left service, about 3 years later, I was on that one ship, the USS Purvis DD-709 out of Newport. When I first up and looked up and saw, well, being an electronics technician, you had to climb the mast in case something failed. And I'm thinking, that's a long way up there. And I only had to do it one time, undersea, underway, when one of the antennas, probably there was a connection actually failed. And so we had to get it fixed. And since at that time I was the youngest ET on board in regards to rank, guess who went up? I did. That was not really a fun experience. I don't fear heights. I had a hot air balloon for 25 years and had no fear of heights, which I did. But that was not a really great experience underway when the ship was swaying to be up there way up. If it worked, we didn't have to do much else. If it didn't work, you worked on it until it worked, which meant you might work 24/7 to get it working. Okay. Unlike other ratings, um, our only duty was to maintain, in my case, communications equipment running. Receivers, transceivers, they had to run. Of course, there was always backups, but sometimes the backups failed. So that was our goal. That was our mission. We had to keep things running. Um, seemed like there was never a sufficient amount of parts on board a destroyer, which is very, very small compared to an aircraft carrier. So sometimes if we didn't have the right board, we would have to go down to troubleshoot the board. And in those days, it was basically resistors and things before. It was tubes and resistors, and it was not plug and play like it is today. So we would have to go down and troubleshoot the board to find something wrong with it and hopefully get it fixed. If it didn't get fixed, then we would hopefully the supply ship, if we were underway, would supply us with the next time we got to a port. But that was really our only duty, unlike some of the others that their duty might be, working, maintaining certain things, and so they spit polished and painted, and everything is looking nice. We didn't have to spit polish transmitters and receivers; they just have to work. So that was a good plan, you know. So we had probably more downtime than some, but when something failed, we had no downtime. Well, it seems like every time you did on your first cruise, they would feed you the worst stuff. Like, okay, we're going to have liver and onions. We're taking off tonight for a cruise. Really? Liver and onions? I can't even stand the smell today. Um, Probably the Navy, though, is better than the guys living in a foxhole in the frontline combat, living out of cans and K rations and whatever, come up with coal. Maybe they were able to get it hot. They could heat up with their cigarette lighter or something. So, yeah, the food was not glamorous. It was satisfying. There's always something to eat every day. Maybe it's not something you wanted to eat every day, but they served, there was always plenty of it. So, I sure would not, I like to cook myself personally, but I'm sure I wasn't glad I was not a cook on board a ship doing it for 274 people every single day. That would be above and beyond my call of duty.